So, Kolisi, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you please tell us a little bit more about your own backgrounds? Where did you grow up?
Okay. I was born in Durban on the 25th of May 1960 to parents who one was a Methodist minister and my mother was a nursing sister. So I pretty much spent the early part of my childhood because my father was a minister, being moved around as he was being moved by the church. In those days, it was very rare that you would have a minister in the traditional secular having his own church. You were just a servant of the people, and the church moved you. So in the earlier parts of my life, I was being moved predominantly to rural Transkei, because that's where the church was moving my father. And at some point, when I was about 8, 9, I went to stay with my grandmother, my mother's mother, out in a place called Ndabankulu.
In KZN?
In the Eastern Cape.
Oh.
My father and my family comes from Mzimkhulu, which is right on the border of the Transkei and Natal. It's one of those areas which one minute belonged to the Transkei, and another minute belonged to KZN, but now it's finally come back to KZN.
Right.
So I spent time there growing up with my grandmother, and while my father at that time went to the theological seminary which was in Alice at that time, in the Ciskei.
Right.
Where he was teaching there. And whilst they were there, and of course I said I was staying with my grandmother. I was only a child only sibling at that time. And then while they were there, my father was fortunate to have received I guess it was a scholarship to go and do his doctorate at Harvard. So suddenly I was uprooted from rural Transkei straight into the bright lights of Boston. Not knowing English, nothing, just being a rural boy.
At what age?
Age of 10.
10?
Yes. So I moved to Boston, Cambridge, to be more specific, at the age of 10, and started grade 6, there. Did my high school there, and at the end of 15, my father finished. So that was in 1970.
Right.
So when we moved there, so in 75, my father completed his doctorate. And they, of course, at that time, Afrikaans was predominantly still being required at school. And because I didn't know any Afrikaans, and it seemed like I was not very good in languages, the decision was taken that you're never going to finish high school because you just flunk Afrikaans every time, So it was decided for me to stay in the US. I stayed with some family friends until I finished high school. And I continued, and I was very fortunate to have also got a scholarship while I was in my first year from the United Nations, but the scholarship only paid for tuition. The rest I had to see to finish, So one worked like most students do in the United States.
That was at which university?
Northeastern University in Boston. So I went in there wanting to do pre-med, and I ended up not liking that, and I ended up doing a computer science degree. But I think for me, that experience between the age of 15 until I finished my degree at the age of 20 was a period of, I would say, on one hand, a bit of challenging personally, in the sense that from the age of 15 until 20, I never saw a single member of my family because my parents could never just afford it. You know, my father also, when he came back, had other responsibilities of his brother's kids his brother got a stroke, so he couldn't work, so he was raising his kids, and so there was never money. And of course, my sister was born there, in the US. So from the age of 15 until 20, I never came home.
So who inspired you in those early days?
First of all, I would say that my father did inspire me, because my father was a really always drove for achievement. I mean, when he was studying, I would have to sit next to him and study. And so my father really inspired me in so far as having drive, determination, needing to get things done, and of course the fact that he himself came from a very rural background. Here he is in '65. He went to Harvard, to Chicago, University of Chicago, and did a master's. Came back and went to Harvard again and did a doctorate. So I was very inspired by that. I was also inspired by my mother. My mother was a soft one. My mother was able to always demonstrate empathy and sympathy and that feeling for people. So that's another characteristics that I saw that was very beautiful, was how my mother, not to say that my father was, he had both, but I think his dominant part was, maybe that's how come one time he ended up as a truth commissioner, he's one of the truth commissioners that was asked by my dad.
That's at TRC.
Yes. So, but being in that circumstance, I had to grow up very quickly. Having to accept the fact that your parents can't afford to bring you home. You're buying your own clothes. You are feeding yourself. And so I worked hard in my studies. Failure was not an option, because failure meant that another year I would have to hang around and have to support myself to a large extent. So in as much as I was young, growing up like most youngsters, I couldn't afford to be laissez-faire about things. I had to be focused. I brought up with very, very strong values and principles, Christian principles and values. So for me, even though I was absent from my parents, it was like my parents were always watching over me, everything that I did. So I tried to make sure that I wouldn't do anything that would disappoint my parents if they ever found out,
So Mxolisi, at that stage, what was your dream career? Did you have a dream career?
At the time when I decided to change in my studies in first year fortunately, in the US, because the system is basically in first year, everybody does the sciences, everybody's the same course. So it's more later on when you start thinking about more special. When I decided that I didn't want to do pre-med, I was in a really dwang, if I may say that. Now what? Because all I ever wanted to be was a doctor. So I was also inspired by by a professor of mine, a maths professor, who actually inquired whether I'd ever thought about doing computers. And I said, no. And so he said, well, here's an opportunity. Why don't you do at least one semester and see whether you like it or not? The rest is history. Ended up doing a computer science degree. So I think that encounter with that professor, I think, changed the direction of my life. But also the family that I stayed with after my parents left me. It was a white family. Now imagine I'm coming from a background where it was a polarized background. I come into an environment where there's this integration, but there are flaws in the integration because at that time I came, when I was in the US, in Boston specifically, there was a time of busing where they were trying to do forced integration of kids and busing them to, and it was a lot of racial turmoil. I would say one of the most transformative experiences that I still take up to today was the time I spent with that family. A white family that had kids, boys pretty much my age, but living with them, and they didn't see color. Treated me I learned how to drive. The dad taught me how to drive. The dad, the few cents that I used to make, invested money for us. We used to give. He was good in investments. And I raised this point is because coming back now to South Africa, with a computer science degree, I couldn't work as a programmer because those were the times of segregation. You were not allowed to be a programmer as a black person. And of course, apartheid was still strong in South Africa. So it could have been very easy for me to say, yes, look what is happening here. All white people are the same, And I had to continually remind some of my friends that says, no, not all whites are the same, not all blacks are the same. There's good and bad on all sides. So for me, that always made it so much more easier to be able to look at people for who they are more than what they are. So I practice that in my mind, even from a class point of view. That look at the person, the individual, not the cloak that they wear. So I can relate to the lowest of the lowest. I spend time even talking with union guys at a social level to understand them as human beings, so that even they themselves, they don't see me as a boss, but we interact at a human level on issues. That helped me there. So that I would say that was a very transformative moment for me. So it's not just people that were inspirations, but it's moments in my life that brought a lot of inspiration about the person I would grow up later to become. And I've seen the value of that later on. Sorry, bless you.
Thank you.
And obviously at that time I just lived at the moment. But the real lessons is when you get older and you reflect back and drawing upon those experiences, and you say, my goodness, what a moment. Although I just had to live the moment, the impact that it would have on you, you actually feel it much later in life.
So, Mxolisi, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point? Or maybe a number of turning points?
Oh, a number of turning points. First of all, I mean, there's been great failures, what would be called failures, that I've experienced in life. I came back, I was 20 with a degree, couldn't get a proper job. I had to work at a bookshop, the first year, packing books, in a township, and in Pietermaritzburg. And that in itself, now imagine, I've just finished this degree at a very good university, and now I've got to go as my first job to go and work in a bookshop. I can't practice my trade. So I had to really acclimatize to the moment. I did, by the way, get a scholarship to go back, now a full scholarship, to go back and do my master's. And I turned it down.
Why did you do that?
It's this moment in my life which says, I've been out of this country for 10 years. I need to rediscover myself. This is my home. Remember, the truth of the matter is that you may live in a foreign country. I don't know what it is. You're never 100% accepted as though you are one of their own. So even though I was in an environment like Boston, it's not that you were not experiencing racism there. But what I also understood is the fact that I didn't know what it is to be a black South African since the time I was only 10 years old. And I had not experienced life in the true sense then. So, and I had really no desire, because I could have gotten my citizenship twice. After 5 years, after every 5 years, I could have gotten a citizenship. But I always knew I wanted to come back home. So if I had to leave again, each time I leave, I deprive myself of the opportunity to understand what home is all about and how to actually assimilate myself back to be a black South African in that point in time and understand and build my own new networks, or whatever you may call it, friendships. So I wanted to stay.
So in those dark days, obviously you had hope for the future of the country.
Of course I had hopes for the future. But as life would be at that time, you were caught in the moment of having to just trying to deal with what was in front of you. And so, I enrolled for an MBA at WITS. I was 22. I wonder why they even accepted me. After 9 months, I failed. So for the first time, I experienced failure at an academic level, and which is something that I never knew of. So those are the things that shaped me, started shaping me, because it was a traumatic experience for me. But I had to go through that.
So they failed your thesis?
No, I just, it was a 2.5-year program. I mean, you just failed along the coursework, Those were the days they were taking us in numbers from a quota, but the fact that is that I think 1 out of 7 of us who were black that year ever made it. Yeah, we got our MBAs later on in life, but so it was also experiencing that part, where we had to live in Soweto, and we had to come to Parktown. You can't get access to companies to do your projects because with these projects you need to go and talk to companies. As part of your assignments, you can't get access to them. So that really taught me the real challenges of what it was like, living in South Africa. So these are the moments that build you, that shape you. So I was actually interestingly enough, you would say, well, why didn't you just leave again? I said, but that's running away. That's how I would have seen it. It's just running away as though it's not my problem. That I can't be part of a future solution for it. So I stayed. But eventually, I did manage to get into a job with an American company. It was called Sperry Univac at that time. It became Unisys. Okay, because of so I was able to write software, and I had the opportunity after getting married to go and work for them. They took me over to London, and while I was there, everything was going hunky dory nicely, and the dot-com bubble blew, and I was a victim of that. So Unisys had to retrench, I think, about 5,000 employees worldwide, and I was a victim of that. And at that time, we just had our first child in a foreign country, and that was another crossroad of my life, which changed my direction. Fortunately, my wife had just gotten a job. I didn't have a job, so we decided, because her sister who was living there, that she would go and stay with her. I would come back with the little one who was just under 2, live at my parents', try and find a job in South Africa. It was pointless for both of us to come back and not have work. But at that point in time, I said to myself, I like writing software, but I'm not sure this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So it gave me a moment when I came back not to look for a job in the IT, but I decided to go into banking. So I changed total careers. It meant having to drop quite significantly in salary because I didn't have a skill in banking. Neither did I want to work in the IT in banking. Fundamentally wanted to understand and learn banking. And for me, it was a case of saying, I would love to experience a job where I can learn a lot of things about other industries, not just being focused on one thing. So banking gave me that opportunity. I had clients who were in this industry, clients in that industry. So it gave me an opportunity just to, in understanding my client, to understand in the sectors that they're working in, just understanding various sectors. So I got involved into banking, and while I was in banking, and of course, remember now, I'd been working when I was in the US. There was this thing about, and when I was writing, even though before I went to the UK, I was also writing some software for just to make some pocket money, moonlighting, for like video shops, inventory management type of stuff. So the whole thing of entrepreneurship, maybe sort of beat me a little bit. So while I was in banking, there was an opportunity with some family members to acquire a business, and I sort of left banking for us to be involved in this business, and the business went bust.
What kind of business was it?
Well, my brother-in-law had been working for PG Bison, and he had been a GM for one of the plants. Excuse me. So there was an opportunity for one of PG Bison's competitors who was selling a similar type of plant but smaller one, basically building components for the building industry. So I said, hey, at least one of us know what this thing is all about. And we went in there, gung-ho, my wife left her job, his wife left his job, my wife's sister, and he got into this thing. We got a partner, and the partner ended up, we didn't agree with strategy, and so he held back on the working capital, and behind our backs decided to go and sell all of the equipment to our biggest competitor. And so here I was again. Now I've had at that time I was already a second child. So here I was, no job, no money. I've just been retrenched before, not long ago, many years earlier, where I used all my pension money, insurance money just to try to survive, after coming back from the UK. And so I ended up having to get back a job, almost got sequestrated, almost lost everything. So again, another crisis in my life. So it was like I'm going from one crisis to another crisis. And but in that journey, in that last journey crisis, it's one thing to say that I grew up in a Christian family where we prayed and all of that. It was in that moment that, in my moments of desperation, having tried everything, I had to surrender myself. I had to surrender myself to God. I truly had to say, I need your help. That was a very transformative period again of my life. That in as much as I grew up in a family that was religious, I never truly had my own relationship. And it was in that moment that the connection happened for me. And believe you me, everything turned different after that. First of all, I managed to find a job back in banking. And on the day I was made an offer, I gave thanks. Finally, if I couldn't have survived another month. Otherwise, everything was going to be gone. That same day, as I was receiving my letter, I get a phone call from an old colleague that I had been in banking with in a previous bank. And he was sort of inquiring, and I haven't spoken to this guy for years. And he was working on one of the American banks. And he says, what are you doing? I said, oh no, I just give him a bit of a brief over the phone about what has been happening in my life. So he asked me, have you signed that offer yet? I said, no, but I'm definitely doing it before the end of today. I said, hey, can you just come through, man? Just have a cup of coffee with me. What I didn't realize that is that I walked in there dressed like this. I walked out of there 4 hours later with an offer. A coffee turned out to be one interview and another interview and an offer, all in that one day.
And they took you into the mining industry?
No, it was still in banking. They made me a better offer than the one I had. And I took the first one. Now, people always say you're crazy. You are almost bankrupt. You've got no money. You've been given a better offer. And why didn't you take that one? I said, you know what? In my moment of desperation, I asked for help. My prayer was answered. I even thanked the Almighty for answering my prayer. This is nothing but a test of my greed. I've already given thanks. If he had wanted me to have that one first, he would have made me to have that one first. No, I'm not going to allow my greed. I've already given thanks for this one. That took me on another journey. No, probably 9 months after I took that job, I'm coming from church with my wife. I meet up with an old colleague who says, hey, we should get together, empowerment things are happening, blah, 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 blah. I didn't want to disappoint the guy because I was still licking my wounds. I'm still trying to recover. I'm still broke, And I said, okay, look, when you've got something, give me a call. 3 weeks later, he calls me. And for a cup of coffee here at the Hilton, sent him. And he introduces me to a gentleman whom I've never met in my life. His name is Mxolisi. Mxolisi. So, now remember, Sipho doesn't know me. Within 15 minutes, Sipho is telling me that he's trying to put together a team to bid for some assets that Anglo and Ingwe, which was Ingwe Coal, which was part of Billiton, they're putting together into a SPV so that empowerment groups can bid for this thing to create a new mining company, black owned. And he looked at me. He doesn't know me. He says, will you be part of my team? I said, Sipho, I'm very, very honored, but I know nothing about mining. Oh yeah, in the bank we'd funded. I was part of a team that was looking at the funding of one of the mining companies. That doesn't qualify me at all to say I know mining. And I turned him down. I said, I can't add value to you. He said, okay, that's fine. 2.5 weeks later, he gives me a call. He says, I'm going to be coming by, by your area there where your offices are. Can we have coffee? I have coffee. Sipho is a nice guy. And he proposes this again. I said, Sipho, I don't know what value I'm really going to give to you. I can't add value. I'm not going to do it. I can't go for a ride. I want to roll my sleeves. That ended up like that. 2 weeks later, he phones me again for a cup of tea at the Hilton again. When I go there now, there's some guy from PwC Corporate Finance, another guy, an old mate of his that he had also was pulling into this thing. And he says, before you say no, tell me what you do at the bank. So I tell him, I'm allocated some clients. I'm going to try and, I work with the team. I've got, a more relationship, trying to understand the client's needs and putting a team, whether it's, because it was an international, it was Societe Generale, to say how can we, add value to a customer. He says, with the aim of getting a mandate to do something for them, whether it's debts, restructuring of their, structured finance, whatever. And then he says, after that, and said, well, if you get the mandate, then obviously you pull in all these resources now to execute the mandate. So he says to me, so you spend a lot of your time trying to understand a customer, to try to understand their needs, putting resources around you, technical resources, to put solutions, propose solutions. He says, are you the only one who does this? I said, of course we're competing with a lot of other banks are doing that. So he says, which is the most difficult part from concept to finally executing the mandate? I said, it's the mandate, getting the mandate. It's the most difficult. He says, so you are basically saying that you are selling your capabilities as an organization with the hope that you can then learn business. I said, yes. He says, this thing is just a black rock, for goodness sake. If you can sell that sophisticated thinking to your CFOs and CEOs, man, you can actually market this thing called coal. You can be a marketer in this business. And of course, you've got your financial skills also from banking. So you could be an asset. And the penny dropped. And that's how I ended up being part of a Yesizwe that created that company.
So was this the first time you saw yourself as a marketer?
That was what I saw. He actually had to help me see that. I didn't see it. So obviously we went through a 2-year process. There were over 60 bidders, and it was narrowed down to 23, down to 8, down to 3. And after 2 years, we finally were the successful bidders. And then I left banking, and that's how I entered mining. And that was 20 years ago. In actual fact, it was in 2020. It was 2010 when we were finally awarded, or being were the final bidders who won to do the transaction. And it had taken 2 years to get there. But in those 2 years, every single week, we would meet as the founders. There were 7 of us at PwC, who were our corporate finance advisors, working on this thing, from 67 bidders right down to winning. Every week, every Monday. Only Easter and special holidays like Christmas and that we didn't. So again, about what it takes to create something new. So I'm relating all of these things to you because these are the things that I went through that transformed my life, but there were big lessons, big moments in my life in terms of shaping me for a future.
So is it fair to say that the reason SIPO saw your marketing genius was your skill in understanding what the customer needs, truly needs?
I think for him, he just simply said, remember SIPO had been a coal marketer before. When he was still working for Anglo and Billiton. He worked in coal marketing before. At that time, he was country head of ABB Alstom. I think what SIPO saw was something that I couldn't see in myself. And because he had done that job before, he could just clearly see that I just fitted the bill in being able to do that. Because by articulating what I was doing, he just saw that, man, this is no different than what you'd have to do about understanding a customer, in terms of the qualities of coals, understanding their uses of coal, and all of that. But I think what he also saw was, I'm not sure. I'll come back to something that plays out a little bit later in this journey. So I came in. We started with SIPO, and of course, in all of these things, sometimes there are challenges in these consortiums, groupings, and all of that. So at one time, I had to stand with SIPO in a particular challenge that we had within the group. And it was SIPO and myself on this one side and the others on the other side. And I vowed that to him that, you know what, thank God you were God sent to me, because I never asked to be part of this. But whatever you saw in me, I stood by him. And of course we won at the end. That whatever we went through.
So you valued loyalty very highly.
Highly, but it was in what was being done that was so wrong, that was being done to him, that I could not see myself being in that camp. I said, if it means it's just the two of us, it will be like that. So many years later, and so it's actually interesting. It was after we created Exxaro. Of course, Sizwe ended up merging with Kumba's non-iron ore business. We created Exxaro from being a marketer. I ended up running our base metals after we were Exxaro base metals and industrial minerals business. I ended up running coal business, and after that I became the CEO designate. But in that journey, way into the journey, I asked Sipho, you didn't know me. You did not know me. You had built many relationships. By that time he was in his 40s. Why me? Why me? You didn't know me. Hey, Sipho is a very interesting character. One day you should do something with him.
Love to.
He says to me, Mgojo, I've journeyed with you. In the most difficult moment of my life, you decided to stand by me. At one time we were fighting the battle back to back, the enemy. And you were prepared to go down in the trenches with me. No. It's not what I saw in you. Now that I reflect on it, it's God who knew that I was going to go through a battle, and he had to find me somebody who will be prepared to go into the trenches with me. And he led me to you. I can see it now. Because if you were not there, I don't think I would have survived. So, in as much as you are thanking me, that's what he says. I'm thanking God that he brought me to you. Because there's no logic to why I just chose you in the moment, 15 minutes after I've met you as a total stranger.
So it was truly divine inspiration.
It was divine. He says it was divine intervention. Because out of that now we journeyed together and we worked together with others to build this organization. And ultimately, this is where I'm landing. Did I ever design, was there ever part of my plan to be where I am today, CEO of Exxaro? It never ever. First of all, I never ever thought I would ever be in mining. Let's start there. Never once thought I would ever be in mining. My going into mining was not my choosing. I didn't choose to be here. It happened. So it's again for me, and you'll pardon me, Nick. I'm a very spiritual person. I don't see coincidences in life. I see God's divine intervention in life, where he says that I have got something for your life, and I will create the circumstances, even though they may seem like they are impossible or improbable, but I will create those circumstances because I've got something for you. There's a journey for you.
Now, Mxolisi, when you speak to aspiring leaders, to future leaders, do you actually, and how do you advise them to seek?
In everything. When, there came a point, having reflected on my life, I had to truly ask myself, deep within myself, to say, this is just not a mere coincidence that these things are just happening. I had to ask myself, God, what are you wanting out of me? Why? What? This journey, I never planned for it. But it is happening. What is it? Then I had to then really truly reflect and say, maybe there is a purpose that I have to fulfill. And part of that purpose, I said to myself, in searching, and it would be nice if God would say, yes, that's what I was wanting for you. But I had to say, can it be that I'm being put in these positions because with it is the responsibility of how you can use this position, this company, to do good. To have social impact. So, and then it comes back to what I talked about, that part of me that my mother inspired me about doing good, empathetic, wanting to do, and I suddenly was saying to myself, this can't be just about me. It can't be just about me. It just can't be about Exxaro just maximizing profits. You are given an opportunity to either do good and have good big social impacts, or don't do it. And so for me, I partly firmly believe, that the success of Exxaro is going to be more born by how it impacts broader society, and in that being blessed with the rewards of being a successful organization. But it needs to see itself as being a vehicle to do much broader good out there, and in that being rewarded. Who rewards you? It's those who say, this is the company that resonates with me. This is employers who say, this is a company that resonates with me. Because it's like those guys who were given, those, the talents, and they would say, go and multiply. The one decided to put it in the ground, and the other one
that's right.
did good with it. And so a hand that is closed and is not prepared to open itself to give can never receive its blessings.
So, Mxolisi, how would you describe your leadership legacy, looking into the future?
A very interesting thing that has also happened is that, we are basically a fossil fuel business. And of course, with climate change, we are trying to reposition this organization into new areas. We've created what is called two parts of the business. There's a business of today and the business of tomorrow. In the business of tomorrow, we are saying that we want to be an organization that's going to deal with big global challenges that are coming with the 2 billion people coming onto this planet. And the areas that we have focused on is around food security, water security, and energy security, because those are the basic essence of life. And we're going to work with others to find solutions around those various areas. And so, for me, the day I would say we have truly succeeded is where, first of all, in the environment, around the operations where we live, or where we mine, there can be demonstrable, visible, social, impactful outcomes that we're going to leave behind.
In those 3 areas.
In those 3 areas. Not only there, but into the country and into the continent. You know, I always say to my people, it is in our hands to create the future. It is in our hands to plant the seeds of trees that we will never have the opportunity to sit under to enjoy the shade or to eat the fruits. But we have to plant the seed today so that tomorrow can harvest. Just as in as much, we are today harvesting that which was planted by those who were before us. So we need to be understanding that our responsibility is that in as much as we reap the fruits of those who dared to be visionary, to plant the seeds, it is our responsibility to ensure that we have planted the right seeds to ensure that the next generations. Now, to do that, it means that we've got to be very responsible about what we do with the planet, environment, how we can impact, but how we do things also in a very ethical way, so that we can demonstrate the values of the organization and who we are. It's not for us to say we want to be the national champions, but let our actions be the ones that people are going to say they truly are the national champions. Let the actions. So that is what I always teach my people, is that let our actions, what we do today, be the things that will define our legacy. And our legacy will be defined by those who are the recipients, the beneficiaries, whether they will say, wow, man, they came, and today we can feel their presence because we are reaping from what they have done. So it's not just about us today. Yes, we have to give back to the investors and all of that. But what are we planting? What are we planting? That will define how we will be judged by that generation. But it's not here. It's here. This is not a tick box exercise for some compliance. It's about generally understanding. I've got 2 grandchildren now. When I look at these kids, I said one day they will either say, wow, man, my granddad was something else. Or they're going to curse me to say, we are where we are and these guys didn't do anything. In actual fact, they destroyed everything for us. I choose to be in the first, where those generations can say, wow, we are where we are now because there were those before us who made sure the foundation and prepared the way for. And that's why, you know, I'm so biased towards action. You know, I'm biased towards action because we are good in planning and talking, but we're not good in executing. This country has been blessed tremendously, but we just have not in ourselves. It's like we are lost. It's like we are lost. We've been blessed with resources. We've been blessed with people. But we have become so self-absorbed about ourselves, about us for the moment, that we don't understand and see the great responsibility that we've been bestowed with about preparing for the better and making sure that the future is a brighter future.
So, Mxolisi, how would you... What does the future of leadership mean to you?
You know, there are various components for me about leadership. First of all, I'm going to personalize it. Vision. A leader that doesn't have vision, I don't think they can truly call themselves a leader. Because to lead, it means you have to move forward, taking others along. So you have to give them this hope of what this thing is. So you've got to be visionary. You've got to be bold. You've got to be bold to think beyond the possibilities. So that what becomes impossible, what is deemed to be seen to be impossible, you make it possible. So it's going to require courage. Because in dreaming, there are those who are going to call you mad. They're going to say you're crazy. Who do you think you are that you think you can achieve that? Everything that has ever been seemingly crazy and impossible that exists today, it started with somebody's vision and a dream. But the question then is, how do you convey that in a way that it inspires people? That's the next thing that you're going to have to be able to do as a leader. You've got to bring inspiration to the people that even though they say, my goodness, how in the world are we going to defeat those Philistines? They are giants. And you say, no, but they're just humans also. And get them to believe. Because when it is time to do the battle cry, they've got to be so inspired, so motivated, so wanting that thing that they themselves see themselves beyond what they think they are capable. Because the truth of the matter is that I see it within myself. I never dreamt that I would be a CEO. It was not in my narrative. I have discovered about myself things which I never thought were capable. In actual fact, it was Sipho who once said to me, one day you can be a good CEO. I said, me Sipho? I've never even wanted to be one. I don't think I even got it in me. It says you don't know what you don't know about yourself. And a lot of us don't know what we don't know about ourselves. So I have to help the people to actually self-discover themselves about their potential. But I can only do that if I've given them a vision and I've created an environment which empowers them and enables them to self-actualize. So the environment has got to be also non-threatening, where mistakes, it's all right to make mistakes. Because we all grow by making mistakes. We were not born running. You had to first pull yourself on your stomach. And then you started trying to walk and you'd fall, you'd get up, you'd fall. You don't say, well, I give up life now. Until you discover and you get the confidence. But each time there's a fall. It's good, it's okay, it's good to fall. Just don't hurt yourself. Don't fall too hard. But allow the environment where people can also feel that they're not going to be punished to make mistakes. In actual fact, say it's a moment of learning. Because if you can create a context like that, remember, every individual has got special gifts that God has given them. Some of the time is that they are only the limitations that they have upon them has been socially conditioned. At the age of 3, a child does not know impossible. By the age of 7, 8, everybody else has told you, no, you can't be this, you cannot do that, you can't that, no, so you are already put into a box. And all your life, everybody else is putting you into a box. I'm saying, can we break the box for a moment and allow the people to truly be what they possibly can be? And hence why in my own organization now, when we were crafting the 2026 strategy, in that process, it was facilitated by a company called Future World, where we wanted to understand how the future could look like, so that we contextualize our strategy on the basis of what are the things that are happening around us so that we don't know, that are basically defining the future. So that when we are looking into a lens, which is not going to be perfect, but at least we can understand these are the things that are the big mega trends, big things shifting, big technologies, that are all of those things, so that we define ourselves in the context of that are happening. It was a journey of 6 months to create the 2026 strategy. And I was given 30 spaces, 30 people that I could take on this thing, which will ultimately, and this journey meant that guys from Silicon Valleys, from all over, were coming to talk to us and doing group assignments and all of those things, which culminated in shaping our thinking towards now finally creating a strategy for Exxaro. I had 30 seats. The first 1/3 was on my exco. I could have simply said, well, it will just be us. Forget 30. To be just better. Can I talking about this defining this strategy now? Because this talks about leadership now.
Right.
We're back to the leadership thing. So I chose a third, being the EXCO members. The next third, I said, you know what? Because I want inclusivity. Just imagine developing a strategy for a company which is not the prerogative of just the top team. But you say, how do I bring the rest of the organization to participate in this process of defining this future? So the next third were people chosen from different levels of the organization that made the next third. But they're predominantly in the more management, but it's different levels. The last third were the millennials, the below 30s. That's the team that crafted the Exxaro strategy. Now, we're talking about a company's future, where in this one team, you've got right from the most senior of the senior to the youngest of the youngest, working together for 6 months, interacting. And the question you may say, but what made you want to do that? Before I became CEO, while I was still running coal, I was fascinated by these youngsters in our organization. And the reason I'm saying I was fascinated is because I, in myself, realized that as I'm getting older, there are things about this future which I'm going to be struggling to understand and grapple with. But yet, I'm supposed to lead an organization. And yet, there are youngsters here. And I said to myself, you know what? Whenever I get something new in my home, whether it's technology or whatever, I just give it to my kids. and they figured it out from it. They figure it out and they come and teach me. I said, why do I think that that could not be the same in an organization where these things of the future, because we are so molded and shaped and already rigid in our thinking that they cannot provide us the insights and we can learn something from them. So I used to spend, right, even after I became CEO, every month we used to have a tea session with what I call the professionals in training. Those are the guys who just come out of university that we sponsored, and they have been prepared over a 3-year time, in terms of understanding the business and getting various experiences, being moved around. Every month I used to spend coffee or tea with those youngsters, 10 of them, in my office, different 10. I knew every single youngster professional in training in that organization. And when I came to thinking about a team now to craft a strategy, the insights, these kids used to say, wow, man, it's so cool. Like, we tell our friends that, we get a chance to interact with the CEO. They don't even know their CEO. They've never even seen their CEO, but we can have tea and we can socialize. Little did they know that I was spending more time listening to them to learn. I come back to leadership. Be humble enough to know that you can learn even from the lowest person. If you define it from a hierarchical, I don't see low people. I just see people who've got certain gifts and certain talents that I can learn from them. So I open myself up. I make myself vulnerable to say that even as a leader, as a CEO, I don't know everything. I can actually learn from you if I just allow myself and take my position, my rank of CEO and put it aside and just saying, hey man, maybe you can give me some insight with something I've not even seen about this organization. Because most of these billionaires today who've built these big companies, they started when they were millennials, by the way. They were not in their 40s and 50s. They started when they were in university, something even good. I said, my goodness, there's this untapped potential in this organization, but because we box it, we don't allow it to self-express it. Probably that's one of the best ideas. But what we can do for them is teach them values. Values of life. Of humanity. That's what we teach them. Those things which withstand the test, which are timeless. Values are timeless. Doing good, respect, all of those things are timeless values. I don't care which generation, over thousands of years, yes, there are things which are timeless. And those are the things that we can teach our children. Because those are the things that with time, as you grow older, as you gain wisdom, you are able to impart.
So Mxolisi, looking at values and humanity, what have you learned from your own journey that you would say is that you consider most important for building future leaders?
First of all, you yourself have got to be a person of integrity. You've got to be authentic. Because if you want to build others, that which you want to build, they need to see it in you. You can't claim that you want to build something that which you yourself are not. I don't hope you are understanding me. So therefore, if I'm going to say to my people, part of being a leader, it's about being authentic. It's about making yourself vulnerable. It's about listening. It's all those things which you have to actually demonstrate to them So that in your actions, it is in your actions that you are actually teaching them to be something.
So you're leading by example.
You've got to lead by example. I can't say one thing and act differently. So I have to first humble myself. In humbling myself, I can make myself vulnerable. In making myself vulnerable, I can be able to say, you know what, being a CEO does not mean I've got all the answers. So I'm actually sitting around the table with you because you've been given your own God-given gifts. And for me to be a good CEO, I need your help because I need you to be part of this co-creation. I have to demonstrate that. People need to feel that authenticity. Because once you do that, then you truly gain followership. Because people will then also feel that they are valued. And once people feel that they are valued, they are respected, they are empowered, people will do wonders for you. But it is in that which they see in you that I then ask them, in your place, in your area, you're a leader also. What are you demonstrating? That's how come I always say, you want to bring a change in culture. I always say, change management is about, we need to have a cultural intervention. I said, no, culture just doesn't come from there. Culture is an outcome of things that you repeatedly are doing over and over that actually becomes a habit, and finally a culture emerges out of that. So I can't say we want to have a culture of inclusivity and my actions on a day-to-day and what people experience of me is exactly the opposite. If I want to talk about culture of open and connected, then every day I've got to live a life of open and connected.
So would you say it's about co-creating a leadership culture?
It's about co-creating. It's about living every moment, every day, that which you want the culture to be of an organization. It's living every day, every moment, whether it's the values that you are showing or the way the environment that you are creating where people can experience you, the way we do things on a daily basis, that finally forms a pattern, a habit of how we do things, and finally it becomes part of our DNA and the culture has been in.
So it can't be faked.
It can't fake it. That's how come I don't like interventions. We don't have a cultural intervention. By the time you have that intervention, people will be able to relate to that, because normally it's something that's been done and even there, if you don't take the people along in terms of defining what that thing is, but that what thing you want to define, you better be living it today. So that the people experience it and feel it, so that by the time now you come with your nice slides and all of this, with boxes and squares and triangles to try and articulate it, people remember saying, oh, I can relate to that because that's what we do every day here. So I say the culture that we want to create for Exxaro, live it today in what you do as a leader, because then you are doing it with authenticity. So that when a day now you come up with some nice, big, fancy, nice models and diagrams and whatever you call it, whatever you want to call it, people can relate to that. Say, but we're already doing that. Let me give you a very typical example of what I'm talking about. Open, inclusive. We value openness, and inclusivity, where people are given the opportunity to be creative and express themselves. I can now come and say, we want it to be this. Or I can say that, you know what, when I created the Exxaro strategy, when we were going to create the Exxaro, I didn't create it by myself with just my executive. I had people from different levels, youngsters, they were all included, they were part of creating this thing. I've demonstrated already by my actions. Open, collaborate, a space where everybody has the opportunity to express. We're not worried about hierarchies. You can have something which people say, but we did that, I'm feeling it. We are defining our processes in our business as part of driving this whole digital journey. Now, I can say, this process belongs to HR. Let's call it. And, well, HR can go and redefine this process. And come and tell everybody else this is the process that we've redefined. Or I can say, what does this process impact? I'm head of HR now. What does this process impact? This process impacts that person in the organization, in performing that, in carrying out that process. Now we need to redesign this process because we want to make it lean, we want to take waste out. Why don't we call all those people who are impacted by this process? Let's go and do a sprint. 2-day sprint, 3-day sprint as a team. And let us co-create a new process that we will then take ownership of. It's our process. So that when we implement it, it's something that is owned by the people.
Right.
You see? So now when you come about inclusivity, openness, collaboration, teamwork, with your nice business models and people say, but we're doing that all the time.
So it's about living the culture.
You've got to live the culture that you want to create. Because then when you come with these nice fancy models, and we didn't say we didn't say now this is about collaboration. We just said, guys, let's get together. In your mind, you know it's about collaboration. It's in your mind, it's about inclusivity. It's in your mind, it's about how you break silos within the organization. It's in your mind, it's about how you are empowering people. That's in your mind. But you say, let me create an experience where people actually live it. They don't know all these terms. And in that, they say, well, they've never done this before. They say, yeah, you mean you're going to invite us? Sure, this has never happened in this company before. Wow, this is great. Man, we love this thing. And then you say, but all other problems, this is how we're going to create solutions. We're going to create teams. That's how come even in the new head office now, there are no offices. I don't have an office. It's about spaces that encourages, teams. These new workspaces that encourage collaboration.
So it is democracy in action.
Democracy. And to me, that is much more powerful way of bringing about a cultural change. Just act that which you want to become. Just act it. Let people feel something different than they've never felt before. And you say, guys, this is how we want to do things now in the future. And people get excited. And they say, wow, we like this. We've never been allowed to do this thing before. And then it starts fueling itself in the organization. By the time you come with your fancy change management programs or whatever, people will already be seeing that which they say we are already doing. So, so you call that. Oh, okay, now we understand it from a terminology point of view, but we're already living it. come back to 3 years ago with a session where we did for the first time something that had never been done at Exxaro, is that a strategy, a 10-year forward-looking strategy, was created by a team that was representative of the executives, different levels of people in the organization, and the millennials in one team working together for 6 months to finally and in those sessions, where now we were in teams in them, in each team there were millennials in that team. So it was not just the millennials sitting there, the EXCO members said, no. Each team was a mixed team in terms of the people participants, because we were sitting around tables. In each table, there had to be an executive, people in the levels, different levels, and millennials. So that now, even the executive works with a millennial in solving the problem.
So would you say diversity is key to...
Diversity! So when we talk about diversity now as a theme of change management, people always say, but we already live in that.
Now, Mxolisi, when you speak to future leaders, and maybe even your children, what is it you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
I say if you want to future-proof your career, first of all, you've got to understand that the future and the career of the future has not yet been defined, depending on how old you are. What is the future career in a world where technology is changing everything? Where new jobs have not even been created yet and they're still going to be created. So what do I say? Is that, first of all, tell yourself you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Because you don't know what you don't know, you then are going to go and seek knowledge of things that you need to discover. And in that, you are informing yourself. And in that, you are saying, hey, let me understand what this means. Hey, I think I need to reskill myself. But for you to do that, you've got to be prepared to say, that which I had learned in the past 8 years is not going to take me to the future. So learn to unlearn. And understand that you're going to put yourself in a position of vulnerability, because now that which you defined yourself, I've got to experience, you actually don't have that experience of the future. So you're just going to be almost at the same place as a new millennial that comes in, because the future is saying that you yourself don't have experience of that constitutes that future. So you can't go to that youngster and claim that, hey, you've not been around here long enough, and therefore there's nothing that you can say. You've got to listen to me. Because if that's going to be your attitude, there's one thing that's very certain, is that this company is going to go down. So you've got to learn to unlearn and relearn. So we are going to be continuously going through a process of unlearning and relearning. Just look at your own life. How many things that you used to do in the way you used to do them in the past are still relevant? We once had to go and photocopy, do you remember those old stencils? Okay? Somebody built a skill around that, of doing that thing nicely. When the photocopier came, that skill became redundant. It was no longer a practice. The fact that you've done it for the last 20 years, it made it, but you are your worst danger of saying, no. This is how we've always done it. You yourself, you are creating yourself to be a dinosaur. Instead of saying, oh, there's this new technology that's coming in. Hey, I better start understanding this thing, because, hey, this thing now is no longer going to be practical. It's not going to be applicable. So I've got to start learning this thing so that I become still relevant. I still have a job. The future is going to be people who are going to be agile. people who are going to be seeking continuous knowledge, people who are going to be always continuously saying, how do I reskill myself? So that as the world is changing, I'm agile enough to be able to adapt myself and not be afraid of that change, but actually embrace the change of always continuously understanding and reskilling and gaining your knowledge. Because there's no such thing, I don't think there's this one career, there's this career. Because in that process, there's going to be a process of this, that thing can be disseminated, that career, you don't know what technology is going to do to it. When you start having AI coming in, it's not going to be whether now it's you doing that thing, it's going to be a machine, but what does that mean for me now? It means that the way, but I still can exist, because at the end of the day, that machine can only do up to so much. But what other skills do I have to create where there's a human-machine interface? It's more about thinking skills, design skills, problem-solving skills. They start becoming even more important than the pure technical. Because you may have a tool that will do that 1,000 times faster than you, with more precision, being connected everywhere. But at some point, you're going to have to say, now that I've got that, what do I do with this information? So yeah, that talks about the workforce of the future. What types of skills do we have? You know, one of the things that I appreciated studying in the US, and I'm seeing it now even for my daughter, who is studying at Leiden.
In the Netherlands.
And that is, and now she started out doing medicine at UCT, and she didn't like it. So she went and said, is that you've got to do philosophy. You've got to do those things. It doesn't matter what you mean, sciences or whatever. It's that part of the brain that you have to now start also getting tuned. Because that part of the brain now becomes very important in a world where you used to have the right, you used to use your right side, but there are other things that can do that even better than you now. And now it's how that left part of the brain now starts being able to be developed with new skills to say, now this works with this new world.
Now, Mxolisi, you mentioned one mentor who crossed your path through spiritual divine intervention. Sipho Nkosi. I believe there was one other person who had an influence on your life.
Right at the beginning of Exxaro, after the first day we took over, Sipho and I come in, and I said, okay, Sipho, great. I know now you're saying I should be in marketing, but I mean, where do I start in coal? And he says, listen, I'm going to give you a name of somebody. This is their telephone number. Go and have coffee with them. Maybe you may find your answer where you start. And I met this gentleman. He was a retired gentleman. He told me he was a retired gentleman. So I met this gentleman. His name was Gordon Osterlo. Little did I know that, and those Sipho didn't tell me, that was Sipho's ex-boss, who had brought him into Ingwe, into Billiton, who is the one that actually encouraged Sipho to go after this transaction. Because that transaction was, as I said, was a creation of assets that were taken from Ingwe, from Anglo, and he was aware of this transaction happening because the board approved it just as he was retiring. And he said to Sipho, you've got it in you to become a CEO of a big leading organization. Put a team together. I only discovered that when I was talking to this gentleman, that Sipho had sent me to his own boss who believed in him. And he got Sipho to believe in himself to put this team together. Now he had been the executive director of marketing and logistics for Ingwe Coal. So he was a retired gentleman. So after pleasantries and all of that, I said, I have a problem. And he said, what problem do you have? I said, I've been asked to do a job which I've got absolutely no clue how to do. Marketing is marketing, yeah, those are principles, but I have zero knowledge. And Gosi doesn't have time for me, says he's got a business to start running, putting together. So I said, sir, I've got an empty office. I know you're in retirement. I've got an empty office next to mine. Could you be so kind and give me, whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours, twice a week? You can decide yourself how you want to run your hours, or how many times you want to come. I could see a spark in his eye. He says, okay, when can I start? Tomorrow? He says, okay, let's have coffee tomorrow in your office. Gordon came in. I thought Gordon was going to be there for 2 hours. Gordon was there for 4 or 5 hours. And we were just having conversation about some of his experiences. Just conversations. I thought, okay, maybe Gordon will probably skip tomorrow. Gordon was there at the crack of dawn. Now, the value I had from Gordon is how he taught me about coal. Do you know, I must have asked Gordon hundreds of questions. Not once did he ever answer me my question directly. Gordon will answer my question with a story. With a story. And in that story, it's about certain lessons. He taught me to listen with the view of picking up critical lessons in the story, which actually answer my question. So he taught me how to critically think about things. Because I sometimes find myself when I'm thinking about something and I go into the memory bank and I said, okay, which recording can I play of Gordon telling me a story for me to find that lesson? So he taught me to first listen, and he taught me to analyze what he was saying, and then he would say to me, what have you picked up in the story? And then I'll tell him, and then he says, you've got the answer.
So what is the most important or maybe the most impactful story he ever told you?
Oof! There's so many, I can't think of what, because each one was serving a very different purpose. The biggest lesson he taught me was just be cautious that as you climb the ladder of success, as you are being driven by the ambitions of success, of climbing up, not to try and is not to forget to try and live a balanced life at the same time. He said it's easy to forget to neglect your family. It's easy to make an excuse you are doing this thing for them, and in the process you are driving a wedge and it's getting wider and wider between yourself and them until such time that you have lost them, they have lost you. And some day in the future when the children are no longer there, you suddenly realize that you don't have a relationship with them. And when the time comes when you have to retire, now you've got all the time with your wife, and she says, who are you? Stranger. Very, very, very important lesson, which I reminded myself along this journey, where at one time when I was finding this thing almost happening, I had to say, time out. I had to say to my wife, you know what? I'm being very unfair to you guys. I'm unfair to you. I'm not giving you guys as much attention. So, once a year, we have a big family holiday. And once a year, you and I, we have our own time together. When we just go away. No children. It's just you and me. And that has been happening now for the last 15 years. Okay, the kids now are. But I had to remember what Gordon was saying to me. And of course, the spiritual part had to be part of that. The physical side, the health side, had to be part of that. So I had to start looking after myself. He always emphasized, it's easy to get caught in this rat race. Chasing the top. And those things which are most important to you, your family, your health, your spiritual being, you put them aside. And you wonder why you're a broken person at the end. You may have achieved the material, but he says that will not give you happiness if the rest is not there. That was a big lesson.
So would you say that storytelling is a key competency in leadership communication?
Absolutely. I use it when I deal with people, when I deal with those youngsters, when I have my sessions, when I talk. I think you've been hearing a story as I've been communicating here. You know, I've been probably telling you aspects of leadership, but I tell it in the form of a story, which if you pick up things and you connect the dots, it's in the story, it's in what I do that demonstrate those qualities. I could stand here and do a textbook exercise answer for you about leadership, or I can tell my story. And you can say, oh my goodness, that demonstrates all those leadership qualities.
Now, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a story? A success story from one of your mentees, where you shared some advice, where you shared some advice, and that person took your advice to heart.
I spend, like I indicated, I spent a lot of time mentoring youngsters in the organization. And of course, over the years, I kept those relationships with them. And in my mentorship sessions, I normally just help them understand things by telling them with my own story. It's like the Gordon Osterloh way. It was The story, you remember a story. A concept, you don't remember a concept, but you remember a story. One of the youngsters, I remember very well, was so inspired. Because what I had said in that instance, I said, you are the limit of your own greatness.
Right.
You are actually the limitation of your own greatness. But then I also said, maybe I don't blame you because you've been so conditioned that you've become almost like an elephant that has been chained for so long that when even the chains are off, the elephant does not move. You are the limitation of your own greatness. Remember that you can break the chains. The journey to great success is a tough one. If it was so easy, everybody would achieve it. It's about persevering. It's about falling and you get yourself up. You fall, you get yourself up. You fall, you get yourself up. You fall, you get yourself up. But in that, it's knowing where you want to be in your life. You may not necessarily have the whole roadmap. It's not the roadmap. It's what type of, what would you want? If you were to say now, I have lived my life, what would you like to, what would that be look like? What does that look like to you? Because there are many roads to Rome. It's not the road that's important. It's the destination that you want. So, focus on your destination of what you see for yourself. And don't limit yourself. Because other people have conditioned you that you can't be that. This youngster now is a manager minor. He is a one level lower to being the mine manager. This experience happened about 6 years ago. And along the way, you would from time to time saying that, I don't forget the words that you said to me. The other one I say to them, and to me, this one I learned it when I was when I went to Wharton. There's an exercise that they did then, I don't know whether they still do it now, where they say, you are on the front cover, it's 10 years from now, from when you live here. You are on the cover of Fortune 500 magazine. From the moment you live here, tell us how you got to there. Tell us your story. But your complete story. I want to know what's happening with your home. Understand what's happening to your spirit. What's happening to you physically and all of that. What's happening to you that also career or success that created you. In other words, think of yourself 10 years from now. Oh yeah, by the way, you could be on the front page of Fortune magazine. That's what they're trying to tell you. For you to say, me? Yeah, if you want to be there, you could be. So we're saying you are there now. How did you get there? And they say, go and write that journey. And I had to write that journey. And in mine, because Sipho had already reinforced in me at that time to say you could become a CEO. I said I would want one day to be the CEO of Exxaro, because that will give me the opportunity to do great. We could do great things with this organization to impact society. And I started writing my own story. Maybe it doesn't worth it. It's not worth it to be in the 500, but it's my own Fortune 500. It's not. In other words, it's not important that it actually becomes on that thing, but it's important enough to you that you can be this person. Doesn't matter if you end up being in the Fortune 500 is just a metaphorical thing, but all it demonstrates that you've created success, that it is even recognized by others. And I say to them, now go and write yours. Go and write. I give them an assignment. Go and write yours. And they go and write it. So I do that with all people I mentor. I said, tell me your story. Because you have to think very hard to chronologically create a path. It's not going to happen like that. But you take the time to reflect on yourself, of not just thinking about tomorrow, about what you could be, and what it would take you for you to get there. What would you have to experience in 3 years' time that could help you to get that? What new things you might have to. It's all about it's all the ingredients of what you would have to do differently than what you are doing now to get you there, and it makes you think. And along the way, it says that even if it doesn't happen like that, I'm still focusing on that, because I will find another way to get there. And if it means that sometimes I thought that was going to be the best thing, hey, that was not, and suddenly in year 6 you start to say, no man, I can even be bigger than that. Great! Then you stretch yourself even more.
So you're planting a seed.
You're planting a seed, but you're always nurturing this thing, you're cultivating it. Sometimes you have to prune.
Now, if there's one piece of advice that you would like to leave with future leaders that they should implement in their own life, what could that be? For their personal leadership.
Always my starting point. Humility. That grounds you. That really grounds you. You can think you're a great leader, but if you are arrogant, there are many aspects of leadership that you will not, you can see, you may think you are successful, but leading by fear to create success, you have not become a successful leader. Humility enables you to almost become very authentic about yourself. It almost enables you even to take the pressure off yourself, because you don't try to pretend to be something that you are not, but because you're trying to create a facade of a leader. Humility allows you to say, I don't know. Hey, can you share some insights with me? I'm searching also for answers. So in other words, it enables you to be able to allow others to connect with you. And once the connection is there, it's amazing how people will then help you as a leader to become even more successful. Because you've opened yourself up and so that they can come in enrich you. You've allowed them to enrich you, and in the process you've allowed them to be more richer in themselves. So it's not a sign of weakness to say, I don't know. It's not a sign of weakness. Hey man, I actually need your help. It's not a sign of weakness to say, yes, I'm going through my own personal challenges.
Well,
So it and I really do want to emphasize this humility thing, because it brings you back to being just a human being, with your all quirks, with your own warts. You're not scared of showing your own warts, because in that somebody else may be able to help you to deal with your warts.
Mxolisi, thank you so much for sharing your leadership journey and your insights into the future of leadership, and reminding us and allowing us to drink from your fountain of wisdom, and reminding us that we will be judged by the children and our grandchildren on how well we build a future for them.
Absolutely. But it is our responsibility. It is our responsibility. We are part of the cycle of life. We are here to harvest from those of the past, in as much as we are here to plant for those of the future. It is our responsibility. As it has been like that from the beginning, it is now, and it will always be like that it is our responsibility for the next generations.